So up. I came in, man, y'all were here fanning. I was looking for one of those MLK funeral home fans. You know how you used to, come on now, y'all been to black churches before. Don't act like it's new. Don't act like it's new. And so, again, glad to see all of you here. First time for me on your campus, and so I'm happy. Although I was a little ticked off. I'm like, why did I wear blue and orange? Yeah, Texas A&M, we got the same colors. I got some maroon in my closet. I don't know what I was thinking, but I think I just wanted to wear this shirt, so that's probably what happened. Again, glad to see all of you here. Glad to see all of you out for this event. It is good to see you here. Y'all have to stand in the back just like in church. We got seats. Do me a favor. Raise your hand if there is an empty seat next to you. Raise your hand. Y'all, come on. You ain't got to stay on the wall. And I know some of y'all trying to, like, escape out of here. That's right. That's right. Come on over here. Don't front. Look at y'all like, dang, why he calling us out? Now we got to go sit on the second row. I wasn't trying to sit that close. Y'all, come on. We got seats up here. It's all good. I'll get you up. It's cooler up front. That probably would do it. So no sense in y'all standing up. So again, glad to be here. Glad to be on the campus. The President, First Lady, appreciate it as well. Shout out to all the alphas in the house. Glad to see the brothers here as well, and to see all of you. Before I start, anybody here from Houston? All right. See, only a handful of folk get shout out. Alphas get shout outs. I'm a native of Houston, so Houstonians get shout outs. I'll broaden any other Texans in the house. All right, where you from? Where you from? Okay, that's all right. No. I still own a home in the Dallas area. My parents retired, lived in my house there, so Dallas ain't too bad. Dallas not too bad. So always giving the shout outs there. It was very interesting when I saw the graphic on social. Actually, before I do that, let me say this here. Let me thank all of you who have expressed your love for TV1's News One Now. When they made the decision, when they made the decision to end the show, I mean, look, I knew people really liked the show, but even I was shocked at the outpouring from folks when the decision went out that we were going off the air. And it has been, and when I say shocked, I was shocked. And it has been an amazing experience, an amazing time, and it's not even a month. But let me say this here. The end of that show is not the end of what we do on a daily basis. We are operating in it is not. I'm someone who has a great appreciation for black media, black-owned media, not black-targeted media. The difference between the two, there is a difference. The difference between the two is that black-targeted media can change tomorrow. You get a black-targeted radio station in New York. They made a decision. When it got sold, they turned it into a sports talk station. And black folks were like, well, what are we going to do? Well, that's what happens when we don't own. So I've got lots of people around the country. They've been saying, well, what are you going to do? We would love to see you on somebody else's network. And I appreciate that. I spent 6 years at CNN. I've been on every single network. But the reality is you cannot make a difference when you don't have control. You can't make a difference when you don't have control. When you turn on CNN and folks love seeing Angela Rye and love seeing Paris Denard and Shermichael Singleton and all of the different people. But the reality is I put those folks on TV first. Those networks would have never given them a shot unless somebody else gave them a shot. those networks don't look to be training grounds, but I said we need new voices, and the reality is we were able to diversify the cable news airwaves in 4 years of our show than what those networks have been doing since they were in existence. And so having your own voice matters. And so folks have been asking me, they've been saying, well, what's next? What are you going to do? And folks, they've been blowing me up every single day. And I said, be patient, be patient, be patient. Because I will be announcing something fairly soon, taking advantage of technology. But the most important thing is, again, owning it and controlling it, because the first black newspaper was founded in March of 1827, Freedom's Journal, and they said in its lead editorial, we wish to plead our own cause, too long have others spoken for us. You saw all of those clips, Dr. King. The reality is the New York Times and Newsweek and Time Magazine, they were not covering the civil rights movement. It was Ebony Magazine, it was Jet Magazine, it was black newspapers that were covering those stories every single day. It was the Chicago Defender that was covering those stories. When Emmett Till was lynched, it was the Tri-State Defender that actually participated in the investigation and went and found some of the witnesses and drove them back. We just lost one of our greatest journalists, Simeon Booker, who was a longtime writer and editor for Jet Magazine and Ebony. He died just a few weeks ago. It was Simeon who was there writing those stories. I'm saying all of that because we cannot be operating in 2018 where we are going to be outsourcing our narrative. What is happening in Black America today when it comes to our institutions, every single one of us must be concerned about, because if we have black banks that are on the verge of closing down, if we have black colleges on the verge of closing down, if we have fewer and fewer black media companies, then we don't have the very institutions in our communities that will sustain us, because we will find ourselves asking somebody else, can you please tell our story? And so I just want us to understand that as we go forward, it's important for us to say, well, I like this website, but you have to ask the question, is that a black-owned website? Because you want to know who is actually the folks behind it. Praise the Lord for Richelieu Dennis, the brother, of course, him and his mother, they created Shea Moisture. That brother sold the company, and he just last week announced that he acquired Essence Magazine, which is now black-owned again. So I wanted to set that up, and so look for me to just make an announcement on social media fairly soon. But it's all about us being able to control our voices and telling our story. Because when I created hashtag HBCU Giving Day, that would not have been allowed at an MSNBC or CNN, where we could have profiled an HBCU every day and calling on our folks to give. When you turn on the airwaves and you saw black mayors and black state reps, and when you saw other folks every single day, you would not have seen that. When you had the young folks in Alabama who could not get a phone call returned from CNN and MSNBC and Fox when they were trying to register folks to vote to defeat Roy Moore, I put those sisters on the air, and they said, Roland, the boost that you gave us was amazing. And then when Don Cheadle hit me up and he said, man, look, I can't go down there and campaign, but I want to help. Who can I write a check to? I said, call this group right here. And they were stunned when he called and they said, he's actually sending us a check. I said, I know, I told him to call. The point I'm making there is, if we don't have our own outlets to do that, then we will be at a loss. And so I just wanted to make that particular point. So I appreciate everything that you have done, and trust me, what we have planned, I think it's going to be momentous, and it's going to be all about being able to tell our story. So I hope to be back broadcasting from this campus when we make that decision. So let me get started this way. When I saw the graphic on social media, Beyond Normal lecture series, that was it was interesting in seeing that, because so many of us talk about Dr. King and his I Have a Dream speech, when the reality is that was not the actual title of that speech. The I Have a Dream portion wasn't even in the original speech. He had given variations of that speech at different places, most recently when he spoke that summer in Detroit. actual title of that speech was called Normalcy No More. That was the actual title of that speech. If you saw Soledad O'Brien's report on the MLK assassination, she talked about that, and where she actually held a copy of the original speech. That speech was put together by Clarence Jones and several others. There's different thoughts that King sort of fused together into one particular speech, Normalcy No More. And so when I thought about that title, Beyond Normal, I then began to think about how we're now operating in a time where the craziness that is emanating from 1600 Pennsylvania has been normalized. How I remember during the election watching Morning Joe, and the New York Times had done a story, and they were talking about Donald Trump's treatment of women, and the folks on the set, which included Mark Halperin, of course, who later lost all of his jobs because of his sexual harassment of women. No surprise, he was laughing that thing off. It was interesting watching that, and how I remember them saying, well, that's what folks expect of Trump. And I'm going, I'm sorry, that's what we expect of somebody running for president, how they have treated women, normalizing sexual harassment. And then when you begin to see the craziness happening at rallies, and the attacking of folks, and beat the hell out of so-and-so, and all the violence that was happening there, that was normalized by mainstream media because they could not get enough of the reality freak show. And so what ends up happening, all of the normalizing of that leads to a point where he gets a nomination and then beats Hillary Clinton and is actually the 45th president of the United States. And you begin to ask yourself the question, how in the world did this happen? It's because folks normalized crazy. See, understand when you hear, can we keep it normal, or can it stay like it is? Can we normalize it? What that really means is, can we get back to how things used to be? And that really is what his campaign was about. That's really what you have been hearing, because we had folks in America who were saying, I wish y'all folks could just shut up and sit down about all this Black Lives Matter stuff. Can we just, aren't y'all just happy y'all got a black president? Normalize it. All of a sudden, you have white boys wearing khaki pants and shirts with tiki torches walking on the University of Virginia campus in Charlottesville, and folks said, oh, it's not a big deal. That's just them expressing their First Amendment, even though they were expressing massive amounts of hate. What happens the next day? They then show up with these paramilitary people. The cops are scared to do anything, and they're sitting here beating folks, pointing weapons, and then one of them drives his car into a crowd, and he kills Heather Heyer. Normalizing that, because, see, we stopped calling that white nationalism and stopped calling it white supremacy. Folks then called it the alt-right. See, that's normalizing racism, normalizing hate. See, it's no different than when folks would sit here and it's like they kept calling Obamacare. And I had a thing where I said, no, you can't call it Obamacare on my show. It's called the Affordable Care Act. Because, see, I understood that Obamacare was created out of a focus group to serve as a negative when it came to the Affordable Care Act. I even told President Obama, damn it, stop calling it Obamacare. You are reinforcing the negative. His people told me, well, Roland, it's already out there, and so we can spin it. They sound like black folks with the N-word by saying, well, drop the ER and use the A, and now we taking it back. No, you ain't take that back. I don't know what Obama and Valerie Jarrett and the rest of them were thinking. I said, you ain't taking that back. Every time you use Obamacare, you are reinforcing a negative. That's why you got all these clueless white folks walking around Alabama saying, I can't stay in Obamacare. Don't touch my Affordable Care Act. Fool, it's the same thing. So when you begin to accept the language of those who are against you, you are normalizing their madness. And so we can go all throughout this. And I mean, y'all just experienced this. You had white conservative Christians literally trying to explain away how a grown man was hitting on 14-year-olds. And one of these fools even said, well, you know, Mary was a teenage mother. Really? Normalizing a molester. All because they cared more about party than they did the prophetic. Normalizing. Do understand, in 398 and a half years, America has never, ever liked us demanding what was ours. Since August of 1619, when 20-odd Africans arrived in Virginia, we have had this impatience with oppression. You listen to the song Glory. Common says, he says freedom is like a religion to us. Because what he's saying is we simply can't accept normal. Because their normal has been our pain. Their normal has meant we didn't get educated. Their normal has meant we didn't get jobs. Their normal has meant we couldn't live where we want to live. Their normal has meant rules and laws applied just to us held against us. Their normal is when you turn on the television and you see only white folks talking on the morning news shows, and you ask yourself, I know do black people not wake up early enough to be able to appear on any of these shows? Because see, for them, that's normal. And what I need us to understand is we are operating today in a world where they want to return to what's normal. Because y'all have gotten too uppity. Y'all have just done a little too much. Do me a favor, in my backpack, excuse me, the duffel bag, bring my Chaos or Community book, the book by MLK, please. Normal. See, black women voted more, had a higher rate than anybody else in 2008, 2012. They said, oh, hell no, we got to change this. There's no coincidence that in North Carolina they begin to change the laws because they see, oh, too many of y'all start showing up. There's a reason why when you go to right now, all of a sudden in 2010 with the midterm elections, when 16 legislatures switched, all of a sudden voter ID became the thing. They still can't find any proof of voter fraud. Trump just had his fraudulent voter fraud commission. They had to shut it down when Chris Kobach, who's the Secretary of State for Kansas, he wouldn't even give up the data from his own state. He was asking from other people. I'm sorry, if you won't even give the data up, why somebody else is going to give it up? They couldn't find nothing and then said, well, it was because the states wouldn't turn stuff over. No, because y'all fools and it don't exist. See, do understand, black people, y'all scared the hell out of white America with the turnout in 2008 and 2012. Oh, trust me, I'm telling you right now, get ready for some massive voter suppression laws in Alabama because y'all just scared the hell out of them by electing Doug Jones. 98% of black women, but let me also be clear, it was what, was it 94, 96% of black men? That's about the same. I don't know about them 2% brothers, I don't know what they were thinking. But the bottom line is this here, be prepared for what's about to come down the pipe, because what happened was you exhibited your power. America has never been fond of black people exhibiting our power. America prefers for us not to show up. They prefer us to sit at home and watch Real Housewives of Atlanta and not watch news shows. They prefer us to be engaged in this silly thing, are you on Team Umar or Team Tariq, as opposed to, are you actually reading the news? See, they want us to be engaged in mess. I have no time for mess The mess I'm trying to get out of is what's been created in the last 398 years. And so what is happening is you should never, ever accept somebody saying, can stuff just return to the way it used to be? So when you hear make America great again, let's go back to how things used to be. Those were not fun times for us. Those were not great times for us. There are some places we couldn't eat, some places we could not drink, some places we could not go. It was great for them. It was great for them because what they did. But the bottom line, but for us, like, no, it wasn't great for us. See, so I love it when I hear people, I love it when I watched the campaign, they were saying, since 1973, the wages for white men have only gone up 3 or 4%, but for African Americans, it went up 12%. Well, fool, what the hell were our wages before 1973? Our wages were so low, they had no choice but to go up higher than them because they were making more money than us. And of course, wasn't nobody black on the set to explain that because it just sort of went right over their heads. Same thing when all you hear is about what's happening with the working class, which means white folks. They ain't talking about us. See, there is a desire to return to just, can stuff just go back to how it was? And do you understand why that's happening? It's because you right now are living in the age of massive white fear. Let me get you to understand that. You are living in the age of white fear because, see, by 2044, no one group will be majority in America. In the next presidential election, it will be the first time in history that the electorate will make less than 70% white voters. This year, it was 70. It was almost 69, but it was about 70%. See, 2044 is the year, and that's what folks are afraid of. And see, when I say white fear, I didn't say white conservative fear. See, you got some white progressive and liberals who are scared about what's coming down because, see, do understand, America for 398 and a half years has been built and constructed around the idea of white supremacy. Now, here's one of the problems. When you say white supremacy today, people go, oh my God, that no longer exists because they only think in terms of hoods and burning crosses. They don't understand that white supremacy means that what is white reigns supreme. So therefore, the idea that the most beautiful woman in the world has blonde hair and blue eyes and white skin means they can't fathom somebody else being beautiful. Why do you think ABC just last year finally decided to have a black bachelorette? Why do you think you've never seen a black bachelor on ABC? Because again, they're appealing to this swath of America, middle America, because that's what they all see. See, you don't understand. It's perfectly fine us playing basketball and us sitting here singing and dancing, but all of a sudden, now y'all want to also have control and power and resources and all, we got to talk about that. See, that's what's going on here because America is changing and they can't literally handle how America is changing. Understand, I'm not saying all white Americans. I'm just trying to get us to understand what is happening because it's no longer just their world. And so what's happening now is the data shows it. See, this is why it drives me crazy when I watch these mainstream networks where you have people who are about as deep as mustard on a hot dog who can't go lower to understand what the deal is. So in 2009, shortly after Obama was inaugurated, a poll was released and the question was asked, are you optimistic about the future of America for your children? Every racial group, more than the majority, said yes, except one, white Americans. In 2016, the question was asked, are you optimistic about the future of America economically for the next 10 years? Black folks had the lowest wealth, had the highest optimism at 58%. Latinos, second lowest wealth, second highest optimism. White Americans, highest wealth, average of $110,000. Black folks, average of $5,000. They had the lowest optimism. So you got to ask yourself the question, how can a group with the highest wealth not be optimistic about the future of America for the next 10 years economically, because see, they understand the world is changing where they can't make a phone call and Johnny gonna get the job, because Johnny now has to compete against Lakeisha, who has a master's degree. See, so that's why when you saw all these stories, see, you got to go beyond just what somebody says. And I remember reading all these stories. A guy in Erie, Pennsylvania. I wish things would return where they used to. Where I worked at this particular plant, I can be able to pick the phone when my child graduates, be able to get my child a job at the plant. See, that's why I was sitting here arguing with some folks on social media today who said I shouldn't be calling out the Oakland Raiders because they were flouting the Rooney Rule by pretty much cutting a deal with John Gruden to become the head coach when Jack Del Rio was the still coach, but then to abide by the NFL rules where you got to interview at least one minority candidate, they had these fake interviews with some candidates knowing full well they'd already cut the deal to hire them. And then the brother told me, well, man, you should give them a pass because historically the Raiders have been progressive. They hired Art Shell. I said, damn it, I don't care about your past progressivism. I want to know what you're doing today. And the bottom line is, if you're going to sit here and ignore giving me a shot, that's a situation like being on the job, posting the job when you already decided who you're going to hire. And so I'm just going through the motions. No, I want an equal shot. In fact, I want to be on your private list like they on your private list. Can we get on any of those lists? They want normal. And so there is fear of what's happening. There is fear because black women have more educated than any of the group right now. They're sitting there saying, man, what's going on? There's fear when you see what's happening in Florida, where they have a ballot initiative to provide voting rights to restore them to more than 1 million folks who are formerly incarcerated. When the same thing in Virginia happened there, they were mad at Governor Terry McAuliffe, but how dare you restore the voting rights to formerly incarcerated? Then he had to remind them, it was in 1902, I believe, when a state legislator actually said the reason they were taking the voting rights of those formerly incarcerated to keep the darkies from gaining power. He actually said that on the record on the floor of the legislature. What I'm trying to get you to understand is we have got to stop living this lie that somehow because all these folks are listening to hip hop and they like Ice-T and Lil Wayne and they like Jay-Z and like Kanye, that somehow, some way, that just because they were out there in Centennial Park, the national championship game, jamming to Kendrick Lamar, while they were jamming to Kendrick Lamar, Trump was on the inside trying to take the very same rights we've been enjoying. All I'm trying to get you to understand is they will love nothing more to keep things normal, and I'm saying we have to say normalcy no more. See, one of the things around MLK Day that drives me crazy is that, and I appreciate the video you put together because you didn't just play an excerpt from I Have a Dream, an excerpt from the mountaintop speech, and then you show a couple of others, which is one of the problems that we have, because if we are really honest, the problem is MLK has become America's bobblehead. MLK is now America's civil rights mascot. But see, we have to understand that at this point, 50 years ago, he was marching towards his own death. 50 years ago, at this point, he had published his book, Chaos or Community, Where Do We Go From Here? And it was his worst-selling book. Nobody wanted to buy it. His speeches were drying up. Folks did not like, they were cutting money from the SCLC because he dared to oppose the Vietnam War. Go listen to his Beyond Vietnam speech given at Riverside Church, April 4th, 1967. There's no coincidence that he was assassinated 1 year to the day from giving that particular speech. So here we had a man who saw where he was going. I talked to Zenona Clayton. I talked to others who were with him. They talked about his mood in those final months. Literally, he knew he was marching towards death. There was a sense of urgency. He was playing the Poor People's Campaign. All those things were happening because he understood we cannot be operating when it comes to what is normal. Go listen to the March 28th, 1965 speech that he gave on the steps of the Capitol in Montgomery after the march from Selma, where he talks in that speech about how folks in Alabama want things to return to normal. They want the SCLC and SNCC and court to shut up. Can we just have stuff return to normal? Black folks have never done well in America when things return to normal. It is our responsibility today to be the disruptive agents we have always been by saying, America, we are not going to accept what you want us to accept because that's never been a good return on investment for black people. And what we're looking at right now are folks who literally want to bring back many of those same things. You just had the Trump HUD department led by Dr. Ben Carson, a black man, suspend the rules when it came to cities filing their plans to how they were going to get rid of segregation in public housing. And this year is the 50th anniversary of the 1968 Civil Rights Act known as the Fair Housing Act. You tell me, how can you suspend the rules put in place by Obama that forced cities to give you the plans to how they would end segregation, and here we are 50 years after the Fair Housing Act? That's a return to normalcy. Folks want you to walk around being dumb and clueless. They want you not to be aware of what's happening. See, they don't want to connect the dots to when you have State Representative Alicia Reese in Ohio trying to create a Bill of Rights and put it in the Constitution guaranteeing the right to vote. You know why? Because on Wednesday, the Supreme Court heard oral arguments in Ohio where they had a law where they were literally throwing you off the voting rolls because you missed one election. And they were saying, well, that was just to clean up the voting rolls. And the Supreme Court is sitting here going back and forth going, well, wait a minute. Why should someone not voting be an automatic trigger to throw you off the voting rolls? Because they want it to be, and do understand, the person filed a lawsuit wasn't black. It was a white guy who filed a lawsuit. What you have is you have people who are seeing what is happening before their very eyes. They are seeing America become more brown. They are seeing African American and Latinos assuming power, not just in politics, but also in business, in commerce, when it comes to culture. And folks say, oh my God, I don't know what's going on. What can we do? This is just a little too much. I don't know what's happening. We got to slow this thing down. Because 2044 is just sitting right there. Right now, in 15 states in America, the age 15 and under, they're majority brown, black and brown. 2 years ago was the first year in American history where 51% of all kids in public schools were black and brown. Everything that we heard 30 years ago about America becoming a majority minority country is actually happening, and folks can't handle what's happening. So what does that mean? That means, first of all, we can't allow MLK events to take place and we ignore the fact that he went to college at 16. Yeah. Because see, my fear is that the numbers are going to change and then we're not in position to take advantage of our power. So the concern for me is when I look at graduation rates, see, I don't get caught up in how many are showing up. Because if you go behind those numbers begin to drop sophomore, junior, senior year. Which then raises the question, okay, not only what are our universities doing to retain our students, and this is not just an academic issue, it's also an economic issue. But the question is, what are fellow students doing? Are fellow students having a sense of consciousness today by saying, I know you failing, but we're going to make sure you don't flunk out because you might not come back And then if you don't come back, you now are saddled with student loans and you don't have a degree or a job. Now you and your family is further in debt, but not only that, you can't pay your student loans back. You cause the university default rate to increase. So therefore, the students coming from behind you can't apply for loans because if the university loses with their accreditation when it comes to finances, guess what? Everybody loses. This is where collective comes in. This is where we have to begin to say that, no, we have to begin to take responsibility for what is our own. Same thing that comes to funding our universities. I know I've heard from people and they say, well, man, folks like, man, how are you going to talk about the need for us to give back to black colleges? You didn't go to one. I said, I'm black. I said, and I guarantee you there's no HBCU that would turn down my check because I went to Texas A&M. I said, so what's your point now? When you got 5% of Florida A&M graduates giving back, when the president of Wilberforce arrived, 1% of the alumni was giving, and he pushed it up to 9%. When Wayne Frederick got to Howard, 3.7% of all undergraduate graduates were giving, and now it's at 10%. When the average at a historically black college is 3 to 4%, that means that we are hoping and praying for what? Corporate America to fund our institutions, but we'll proudly wear our letters and talk about how we go to HBCUs and rave about homecoming. But the question is, are you leaving a check when you go home? Now, I know there's somebody sitting here right now saying, oh, that ain't the MLK speech I wanted to come hear. Well, it is called the Beyond Normal lecture series. See, I'm trying to get beyond normal. Normal meaning we're not funding our own institutions. See, I started this thing talking about media. It's the same thing. See, don't tell me you care about black media if you don't choose to subscribe to Essence or Black Enterprise or our magazines or support our radio stations or support news. Because guess what? When it goes away, then we start yelling and screaming. Then what we gonna do? Well, it's kind of late. What I'm trying to get us in the position of is we might. And I give a perfect example. And it's no disrespect. I've interviewed the director. I've interviewed Chadwick Boseman. But a brother last night sent me a tweet. And he said, can you please, I'm starting a campaign. I want to take 20 black kids to go see Black Panther. And so he said, I want to buy a ticket, food, gift bag. And he's like 20 kids, $1,500. That's literally what he said. And I said, I appreciate that. I said, no judgment, no shade. I said, but I'm curious. Did you think about doing this to go see Marshall? Chadwick Boseman played Thurgood Marshall. Yes, sir. No disrespect. Follow me here. Black Panther's fictional. As a fictional hero. Thurgood was a real life hero. The brother said, I hear you, but I'm hoping that Black Panther will spark the imagination of these young black kids. And I totally get what he said. But if he had taken them to see Marshall, he would have realized that in the movie, the judge refused to allow Thurgood Marshall to talk in the courtroom. So Thurgood Marshall had to figure out the legal strategy to have the white lawyer talk while he was silent but still win the case. If that can't spark your imagination, I don't know what it will. Follow me here. So we are excited about Black Panther. We were lackluster about Marshall. But then we say, we want more black movies. You got to support Marshall the same way you support Girls Trip. You got to support Black Panther, same way you support another fictional movie. I would love to see Octavia Spencer. I interviewed her. I would love to see her play Fannie Lou Hamer. I would love to see that on the big screen. What I'm trying to say is we have to be in a position today where we are thinking absolutely about us. And see, it's a trip when I've had conversations and black people have said, Roland, I mean, do you have to say unapologetically black? No, I'm being very serious. Black people literally said, I hear you, bro, but like when I hear that, I said, it scares you? I'm literally talking to black people who are scared to hear unapologetically black. And I'm going, well, you can't praise Constance Baker Motley and Fannie Lou Hamer and Ella Baker and Diane Nash and Dorothy Cotton, Dr. King and Robert Abernathy, Hosea Williams, because they were also unapologetically black. What we have to understand is that if we don't, who will? If we are not building, supporting, sustaining our own institutions, who will? And I know you might look at me like, okay, fine. This is what King said in KSO Community. When Negroes looked for the second phase, the realization of equality, they found that many of their white allies had quietly disappeared. The Negroes of America had taken the president, the press, and the pulpit at their word when they spoke in broad terms of freedom and justice. But the absence of brutality and unregenerate evil is not the presence of justice. To stay murder is not the same thing as to ordain brotherhood. The word was broken, and the free-running expectations of the Negro crashed into the stone wall of white resistance. The result was havoc. Negroes felt cheated, especially in the North, while many whites felt that the Negroes had gained so much it was virtually impotent and greedy to ask for more so soon. This is King writing in 1967. Because he understood that and you actually look at the data, folks said, okay, look, we didn't give y'all the right to vote. And look, okay, y'all go to some hotels and some stuff. But y'all do know that the Fair Housing Act got blocked for 3 years because they said, y'all can't live with us now. Now, y'all done got enough stuff. Oh, yes, Republicans and Democrats blocked the Fair Housing Act for 3 consecutive years. It was broken in March of 1968. And the only reason the Fair Housing Act got passed is because King was assassinated April 4th. And on April 5th, President Lyndon Baines Johnson sent a letter to the House saying, to honor Dr. King's legacy, we need to pass this bill. It was passed the following week, which means that Black death was the only thing that led to the Fair Housing Act. See, that's no different than what happened today when you see black folks being shot and killed by cops. All of a sudden, America somehow only seems to want to act when there is blood on the streets. What I'm trying to get us to understand is that we cannot act as if normal is to our mutual benefit. We must be prepared to be 21st century warriors in battling white supremacy and positioning our communities for greatness, because while your grandparents and your parents were fighting the battles out there, they said, your little behind will get an education to make this thing possible, which means that while you are sitting here at 18, 19, 20 years old, you should be having the exact same attitude when it comes to your nieces and your nephews and your younger brothers and sisters. You don't have to be 40 years old to begin to set some standards. What I want every single one of you to understand is that normalcy no more. The time has come for this generation to understand that we are in the middle of a 30-plus year war. This is not about the next election. This is not about the next Democrat who's going to run against Trump. This is not about 2020 or the 2018 midterm elections. This is about us being on the path of a changing America, no longer looking like it used to look, no longer having the same power base and the same economic base, and we had better be in position to take advantage of what is going on. Otherwise, we are going to look up in 2044 and 2050, and black folks and Latinos are going to have numbers, yet we're still going to be illiterate, still not have wealth, still not have resources, still not have power, because we took our eyes off of the ball. No, this requires a new generation to stand up and battle what is going on. This means this generation of young black folks who are the smartest, who are the best and the brightest, who know more, got access to more, must begin to say, we are going to take charge, because every decision you make today will affect your children's children. You are making legacy decisions today. You are breaking generational curses today. This is the opportunity for us not to just be sitting here praising Dr. King and the other foot soldiers. This is a time for us to begin to plot the course for the future of black Alabama and black America, and it can't be done if we are not serious about the fight at hand. I'm going to close this way, and I'm using fight for a reason. This is going to be a fight. This is going to be a battle. This is going to be something where you're going to have to go toe-to-toe with folks. And you might say, well, look, I shouldn't have to do all of that. Didn't my mama or daddy do all of that? Well, guess what? They mama and daddy had to do some fighting. And they mama and daddy had to do some fighting. We have had to fight for every single thing we've ever gotten in this country. Don't make the mistake that somehow we don't have to fight for it now. We're still fighting to vote. We're still fighting for jobs. We're still fighting for houses. We're still fighting for resources. And so my suggestion to you, if you don't know how to fight, go to the gym, start working out so you can learn how to fight. Because if you don't have a warrior mentality, I don't want you to see you praising Black Panther and then you begin to say, I can't be a warrior. Because you come from a line of warriors. You come from folks who understood what it means to fight. And that means that you're going to take on some people who might look like you, who are clueless and crazy, and who are childish in their behavior, and begin to say, we have no time for that, because this is about generational changes that's affecting African Americans. And I need you to, from 50 years from now, I would hope when they have this lecture series 50 years from now, that they aren't just playing clips of Dr. King, but they're playing students who were sitting in this room in 2018 who took it upon themselves to stand up and fight. And if you need to understand how I think when it comes to fighting, all I think about is my frat brother Vertner Woodson Tandy when he said, we will fight until hell freezes over, and then we will fight on the ice.
Yes, well, let's give another round of applause. Thank you so much, Mr. Roland. Coming up next, we'll have a musical selection from the Alabama A&M University Gospel Choir under the direction of Mr. Courtney Moore. Please give them a round of applause.